successful life or a happier life, if you want to put it that way.
One of the things that helps me wake up every morning is doing better, being better.
We grew up poor, and so I'm always focused on helping the working class be able to have a more comfortable lifestyle.
I'm passionate about doing justice every day. I oftentimes say that justice is a verb, not a noun. You know, I believe in action and moving the ball forward.
If I put a finger near this Venus flytrap, and then you see it will just close by itself.
From the jaws of the Venus flytrap to the water-repellent leaves of the lotus plant, the natural world has a thing or two to teach us about efficiency and design.
Pitcher plant, it is designed to create this super slippery surface such that like insects such as ants will slide off into the stomach and get digested.
With support from the National Science Foundation, mechanical engineer Tak-Sing Wong's team at Penn State University is developing new materials that mimic slick coatings found in nature. They're known as slips, slippery liquid infused porous surfaces.
Think about oil transportation, the oil creating drag inside the pipeline. Think about ice sticking on the airplane wing. And from the biological aspect, like marine biofouling, mussels, sea mussels sticking on the ship hull. Imagine if we have this magical coating that nothing can stick to it.
Slips can be made of liquid Teflon and chemically customized for different applications. Think biocompatible for medical devices, or highly durable for use in rugged environments like the hull of a ship.
This one is a liquid infused surface that can repel almost anything. This is water, and then with blood. This is the oil-based octane, and last, this is the mustard.
The pitcher plant and the lotus leaf were the particular bio-inspirations behind this water harvesting system. Wong hopes it will prove useful in regions with water shortages.
We saw that it has a very good efficiency in getting water out of thin air.
Wong and his team engineer the materials and coatings to precise specifications, with form following function.
There's a chemical layer on the entire surface that is designed to hold onto the lubricant. On this particular surface, the droplets will bounce.
The possibilities are many, from keeping a wall clear of graffiti to non-sticking toilets for water conservation.
This is going to be a lifelong research project because there's so many things in nature and we are just touching at the tip of the iceberg, what we call the grand challenges in the 21st century, water, energy, health. So these are the key research areas that we have been actively seeking solutions to.
Looking to Mother Nature for solutions to some sticky problems. Best not to let that bioingenuity slip away. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
During the winter so that it could actually deliver people on time to the locations it was supposed to get to. We're spending $1 billion on the core infrastructure associated with the Orange Line and the Red Line. So when those new Orange Line and Red Line cars show up, they'll actually be able to travel on a system that works and is reliable and dependable. And we rescued the Green Line Extension project into Somerville, which was basically dead when we took office, because we believed that was a project worth saving, and we managed to get $1 billion out of the federal government to pay for it.
Go ahead.
The money that exists now, the new train cars, are because of decisions the Deval-Patrick administration put in place, and we need to do much more. We need significant additional revenue to get the system to where it needs to be as quickly as possible. And I want people to know that I am in this to fix this system for you. so that you can depend on it, so that it improves your quality of life, so that businesses want to continue to invest here because their workforce can get to work on time. And we are going to raise taxes on the wealthy. I have a specific plan to do so. The governor has no plan to do so. He did not answer your question about whether he's going to raise more taxes, but the status quo is not good enough. The one other thing I'm going to do is fire Keolis, the private operator of the commuter rail system. They've done a terrible job. I'll be the first governor to bring it in-house and manage it directly.
Go ahead.
One of his former cabinet colleagues called firing Keolis a political talking point. And in fact, during his time in state government, the T did a study on whether or not they should bring it in publicly and concluded it would be too expensive to do it and it would be less reliable and less flexible with respect to its ability to deliver service. That's not a real answer. I'd also like to point out that his $3 billion wouldn't actually start until his second term, because $2 billion of that is associated with a constitutional amendment that he has to get through 2 sets of the legislatures before it actually happens. And the other $1 billion comes from a plan that was actually originally proposed by President Trump and by the Republican Congress, which is to tax the endowments of colleges and universities here in Massachusetts.
We have to take a break, but this is an important issue. I want to give you each one more bite at the apple. Go ahead. Go ahead
right now.
Yeah.
That's right. I do have a plan to tax the wealthy, to tax millionaires. It would raise $2 billion a year, and the earliest we can do that is 4 years from now, and it's not soon enough, which is why I also have a plan to raise $1 billion from the wealthy universities in this state, which I think is fair. They can afford it. They can continue to do everything they do today, and it will make a meaningful difference for the most important asset in our economy, which is our people, who right now can't depend on our transportation system and where our education system is failing too many of our young people.
Equal time.
Look, we have a plan to spend $8 billion over the next 5 years on the stuff on the T that's going to improve the bus system, the commuter rail, and the rapid transit system. And that's where our money should be spent. The plan's organized, the plan's funded. It's not made up of funny money, and it's not made up of money that starts 3 or 4 years or 5 years or 6 years from now. It's available, it's in the plan, it's going to get spent, and it will deliver the kind of reliable 21st century transportation system that the people of Massachusetts deserve.
All right, gentlemen, on that note, let's take that short break, and we will turn to a fresh topic when the WBZ gubernatorial debate continues in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the WBZ gubernatorial debate here on TV 38. And before our break, Mr. Gonzalez, you raised an issue that I want to follow up on. Governor Baker, you'll start in this round. As you know, Mr. Gonzalez has proposed raising funds to spend on transit and other priorities by imposing a 1.6% tax on private nonprofit schools with endowments in excess of $1 billion. He claims more than half of the proceeds would come from Harvard University, your alma mater, I believe, Governor, which has an endowment of well over $40 billion. You've called this a bad idea. Why? 1 minute, please.
Well, first of all, the colleges and universities here in the Commonwealth of Mass are a major economic engine, a significant employer, and they do wonderful things to promote discovery, research, and learning. But most importantly, their endowments fund, among other things, scholarships and financial aid for low-income and middle-income students. And why we would take $565 million away from Harvard, $200 million away from MIT, and very significant numbers away from other colleges and universities here in Massachusetts that use that money to fund the very kids we're supposed to be interested in seeing get an education, just doesn't make any sense to me. On top of that, it was an idea that was originally proposed by the Trump administration and the Republican Congress, and I opposed it at the time, to basically punish colleges and universities. I don't think we should be punishing colleges and universities. I think we should be investing in them.
Mr. Gonzalez, 1 minute.
It wasn't originally proposed by Trump. It's been pending in legislation on Beacon Hill for a while. But here's why it makes sense. Because the status quo for our education system is not good enough. And it isn't good enough for our transportation system. I am going to aim high. I'm going to take on these big challenges. I want every child and family in this state to have access to high-quality, affordable child care and preschool. I want a young person in Brockton to have the same educational opportunity as a young person in Brookline. I want our public universities and community colleges to be affordable and debt-free for any resident who wants to go without being burdened by student loans. And yes, I want to fix our transportation system so that it actually works for people. And we need to invest more to do that. And this proposal is fair. It would raise $1 billion, which would get us started in a meaningful way on these agenda items. And these universities, I agree, they are important to our economy. But based on the average annual rate of growth of these endowments over the last 15 years, they can afford this tax, do everything they do today, and their endowments will still grow. I believe the more important asset to our economy is our people, and that's who I'm going to fight for.
Rebuttal.
Well, the first thing is, if you think about what my opponent just laid out, it adds up to at least $4 or $5 billion annually all by itself. So his proposal, as misguided as it is, doesn't come close to covering what he's talking about actually paying for. So let's get into the discussion about what he chose to make as decisions when he actually had his hand on the tiller when he worked in state government. Under his management as Secretary of Administration and Finance, he cut early childhood education by $85 million, at the same point in time that state spending grew by $6.5 billion. That's the decision he made when he actually had to make a choice. We've increased spending on early childhood education over the past 4 years by over $100 million. That's the choice we made.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of fuzzy math there, but I'm telling people what I'm going to do as governor, not what I did when I worked for Governor Patrick. And what I'm going to do as governor is actually try to make progress on these issues that are holding people back. Affordable child care in preschool is huge. And what Governor Baker's doing isn't nearly enough to make a difference for people, to make it affordable for everyone and to provide the high-quality services that will make a meaningful difference in kids' lives. The evidence is clear on this. It is game-changing for young kids, and it allows their parents to go to work. I think this is the thing we can do that can have the biggest return on investment for kids and families in this state. And yes, I will ask the wealthy to pay more in taxes so that we can do it, because I don't think where we are right now is good enough.
Rebuttal.
Look, we invested over $100 million in new money in this because we believe it makes a big difference too. But we actually made that decision to invest $100 million. When he was in a position to make a decision about whether to invest in this or not, he cut it by $85 million. Now, he can talk all he wants about the fact that he's got $1 billion to spend. He just gave you $4 or $5 billion worth of items he wanted to spend it on. He's not going to be able to spend it on all of them. And that means he'll go back to doing the same thing that he did before, which is not delivering on a commitment, not delivering on a promise, and overselling what's possible here.
Go ahead briefly.
It's not true. And back then, I was managing a budget during the Great Recession, the worst fiscal crisis the state had faced in decades. I am saying I'm going to raise taxes on the wealthy by $1 billion in my first year and $2 billion more in my last year so that we can make these investments. And it is a lot more, and we will make a lot more progress than Governor Baker, who refused. It's the same old Republican playbook, no new taxes, and we know what we get for that, working families being left behind.
Well, go ahead if you want.
He already spent the $1 billion or the $2 billion or the $3 billion or whatever it was on our transportation conversation. Now he's spending it on our education conversation, even though he's put more money on the table than what's actually been proposed. In addition to that, we did spend $100 million more on early childhood ed because we believe in it. We also increased total state and local spending on K-12 education by $900 million, $500 million from the Commonwealth, $400 million at the local level. We have the highest graduation rate we've ever had, the lowest dropout rate we've ever had. We believe in investing in education, and when we've had the opportunity to prove it, we put our money where our mouth was.
Equal time, then I'm going to move on.
John, it's small ball status quo stuff. It's inflationary increases. It's not what we need. The Baker administration is about to get sued by school districts across this state because they're underfunded and there are huge disparities in our public school system. I will not accept that as governor. I want us to aim high and make a difference. The most important thing we do collectively through government is ensure that every single child has access to a great public education. And I am running to make sure we deliver on that obligation.
Well, this is...
Let's talk about the status quo.
Go ahead.
If I was a status quo governor, there'd still be thousands of homeless families living in hotels and motels in Massachusetts. There aren't. If I was a status quo governor, we wouldn't have a huge offshore wind and hydro program going on to replace a third of our fossil fuels with clean, renewable energy. If I was a status quo governor, Bridgewater State Hospital would still be a stain on the Commonwealth's reputation instead of the hospital that was supposed to be. You talk to families there, it's like night and day with respect to what that place was like once upon a time. If I was a status quo governor, the Health Connector, which crashed during the